What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. One of the hosts of the podcast, my name is Kyle Dabra.
What's going on, everybody? Other 50% of the podcast, Kevin Valentin here. Kyle, it was a very interesting Sunday, like we both predicted. However, a little bit better for you than for me. So, how you doing today?
Doing all right. I'm hanging in there. But it was an eventful weekend for sure. I mean, to be honest with you, it was a phenomenal weekend when it just comes to sports in general. We had a lot of the college football games take place on Friday and Saturday. Really, the semifinal games in the college football playoff were kind of duds. Really, the best game probably of the weekend in college football was probably that Rose Bowl game between Utah and Ohio State, where there was absolutely no defense played whatsoever by either team. Probably, really, the standout performance from the entire weekend was probably Jackson Smith from Ohio State. Had 15 catches, 345,
47.
300, whatever. Had 3 tuts. Dude, that's insane. Really just kind of goes to show how bad defense was on both sides of the ball in that game. And then really to cap off the weekend, I mean, in the NFL, what we're at, week
17.
17. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, we had some great games. I know we'll go over a couple of those, but just all in all, I mean, if you were a football fan this weekend, I mean, you definitely won just sitting at home and just watching some phenomenal games happening in the college side of things and then happening in the NFL as well. So, Kevin, with that said, you ready to dive into these topics?
Ready as I'll ever be, buddy.
All right. So, first off, I want to let everybody know to brace themselves because Kevin is going to probably lay down one of the most vicious rants to his beloved Indianapolis Colts, who lost a pretty tough home game to the Las Vegas Raiders by the score of 23-20. I'm pretty much just going to let Kevin have the floor on that one. I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty therapeutic for him. I think he needs to get this off his chest, and I think he'll feel a lot better after that rant is completed. After that, we're going to dive into the Bucs winning a very close game over the New York Jets, winning by the score of 28-24. Tom drives down the field with about 2 minutes left, hits up Cyril Grayson Jr. on like a 45-yard touchdown pass with about 20 seconds left that gave him the edge over New York. But really the standout story from that game is Antonio Brown having what could really only be described as a meltdown on the sideline and then leaving on his own accord into the locker room in the third quarter and then subsequently being cut by Tampa after all the shenanigans took place with his bizarre exit from that game. We'll definitely have a good discussion about that one after we talk about the Bucs beating the Jets. After that, we will continue to talk about some of the NFL games. The next one would be the Chiefs and the Bengals. The Chiefs and the Bengals game did not disappoint. It was a phenomenal game from beginning to end. But the Bengals were able to come back, get a huge comeback win over the Kansas City Chiefs, winning by the score of 34-31. Another incredible stat line in that game was Ja'Marr Chase having 11 catches for over 260 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns in probably one of the best receiving performances that we've seen from anybody in the NFL the entire season. It's probably the best receiving performance that we've seen the entire year. After that, we'll talk about the Cardinals and the Cowboys game, another game that did not disappoint as well. The Cardinals get a huge road win over Dallas by the score of 25-22. They kind of get back on track after they've had what could be described as a pretty abrupt and bumpy month of December, but they do get back into the win column after a pretty good road win against Dallas. We'll finish off the NFL topics with a quick preview of the Monday night matchup that's going to feature the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns have been eliminated from playoff contention after some games did not go their way to help them possibly get into the playoffs, but the Steelers are technically alive at I think it's like a
7-7-1.
1. Yeah, that one tie is like, it's so weird to throw that one tie in there.
Keeping them alive.
They are alive still, so we'll talk about that game a little bit. And then we'll transition into some NBA topics. We might only just limit it to one, but we are going to talk about the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls have had quite a stretch the last 3 or 4 days with DeMar DeRozan knocking down 2 buzzer beaters in back-to-back games. One was against the Indiana Pacers, and then the other one was against the Washington Wizards. Kind of ugly shots, but doesn't really matter how they look. They ended up going down and getting them the win. And we'll really just kind of dive into what's the potential for Chicago this season. Are they going to win the finals this year? Are they going to be a team that's going to compete at the top of the Eastern Conference for the rest of the year? We'll kind of dive into that to wrap up the episode once we get to that point. But that's the agenda that we have for you guys with this episode. So let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into this episode and let's talk about this Indianapolis Colts game and the Las Vegas Raiders matchup. So, like I said at the top, the Raiders defeated the Colts by the score of 23-20. It was a relatively close game throughout the entire 60 minutes of the game. The Colts were up 17-13 at one point in the second half, but the Raiders were able to get a touchdown, and they were able to get a game-winning field goal at the end of regulation to get them the win, and a pretty solid road win for Vegas at this point in the season. Kevin, the floor is yours. What is your main takeaway from the Raiders defeating the Colts this past weekend?
So I'm just going to be straight up. I've already let out most of my frustration. The second the field goal went in, I literally called Kyle. Mind you, the man is working, so I do apologize for yelling at the top of my lungs in this man's ear to the point where I thought he was going to go deaf. Also, I apologize to my neighbors in my apartment complex because I could not stop yelling. So I'm just looking at this game and I'm saying 100% winnable, 100% attainable. It was something within our grasp. The defense did what it needed to do on multiple occasions. The offense was incapable of putting out consistency. As I've stated all year, it solely falls on the play calling of Frank Reich. I've said this countless times where I say the play calling needs to be stripped. He needs to stop giving too much leeway to Carson Wentz. He needs to understand that an MVP candidate, now a franchise all-time leading rusher in a single season and from scrimmage yards, like he's the youngest player in NFL history to have over 2,000 rushing or 2,000 total all-purpose yards and over 20 touchdowns, and that's Jonathan Taylor. So he's not only breaking individual records, he's breaking NFL history records. But for whatever reason, Frank Reich seems to forget that he's in our backfield. So I'm looking at this game and I'm saying, technically, we should have lost this game by 10 points because Carson Wentz got lucky and threw a 50-yard Hail Mary off of 1 foot into double coverage that fell into T.Y. Hilton's hands. But once again, I'll get into that in just a second. I'm trying to keep this rant relatively low, or should I say relatively short. We had this game right when we went into the half. We had all the momentum. We had the ball going into the half or coming out of the half. Jonathan Taylor was on pace for another 100-yard game. Obviously, up to today, before today ended, we were 9-0 when Jonathan Taylor had a game over 100 yards rushing. And it looked like, for the most part, that was going to continue to follow suit. Now, for those of you that are unaware, the circumstances behind this game was Carson Wentz had tested positive for COVID-19, I believe, on Tuesday, if not Monday. And now with the new CDC and NFL guidelines, you just need to go 5 days and you can return to your team, pending, I believe, asymptomatic and or at least broken your fever. So again, I don't understand how that works. I'm not going to get into my COVID-19 beliefs and how crazy that is. But Carson Wentz was not asymptomatic. Carson Wentz had symptoms when he tested positive. So my quarterback had no reps all week. My quarterback had no practice. He took mental reps. He was watching film. Cool beans. He doesn't feel good. Probably drugged up, given ibuprofen, whatever they can afford to kind of break the fever or whatever symptoms he was feeling, for the cough or whatever. But still, no practice, looked like shit in warm-ups, and he just has not had a week to be fully prepared. Backup left tackle, Matt Pryor. Eric Fisher was out with a bunch of different injuries. Matt Pryor did great, so no fault of his own. Braden Smith, also coming off of the COVID list after 5 days. He actually let up a couple of rushes and pressures on Carson this week. He got blown up a couple of times today and had 2 false starts. I believe actually a false start and a hold or 2 holds. He had 2 big penalties that negated 2 big penalties. So I'm just going down the list of things that kind of, you guys need to be aware of in this particular instance. So as I start getting further, my anger is going to start to get higher, I guess. So at this point, I'm looking at specifically the fourth quarter. I'm just going to skip all the way to the end. Baltimore. Vegas obviously goes down the field. They score a touchdown. Hunter Renfrow needs to be respected in this league because he is a number one receiver. He's not the Devontae Adams. He's not a Julio Jones. By no means is he anybody crazy. But him and Cooper Kupp need to be respected because this man, Hunter Renfrow, was basically always open. And we have one of the better secondaries in the league when healthy. And a Pro Bowler in Kenny Moore guarded him multiple times in our zone, and he got blown up. Like, Kenny Moore has not been embarrassed all season, if not at many times. He was blown up 3 or 4 times. Hunter Renfrow by himself. Hunter just blew past him and ran beautiful routes. So, again, huge kudos to Hunter Renfrow. Very, very underrated. Also the guy that killed us for the touchdown at the end of the game. So, well, it got called back, but still, neither here nor there. I have the actual play-by-play in that fourth quarter of our last drive to where we scored a field goal to tie the game. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, it's 1st and 10. Jonathan Taylor just got us a first down off of a check down 6-yard dump off. It's first down. We run the ball for 1 yard. 2nd and 9. Frank Reich dials up some stupid wide receiver bubble screen. Mind you, we are at Vegas's 26-yard line. Jonathan Taylor has well over 100 yards at this point. It is the fourth quarter. We are trying to score. We are trying to take the lead, if not tie the game. But Frank Reich tries to get fancy, and he throws a bubble screen to Nyheim Hines, in which what did he get here? No yards. It was actually for no gain. It's 3rd and 9. Once again, instead of running the ball or doing something creative with our playmaker to get Jonathan involved, Jonathan's not even on the field. Nyheim Hines gets a dump off because we have no pass protection, and that gains 3 yards. So we kick a field goal. It's instances like this where we consistently throw the football in which we put ourselves in a negative situation to where we take our opportunity away. Carson Wentz had 27 pass attempts today. Jonathan Taylor had 20 rushing attempts. Tell me where on earth that makes sense that our quarterback, who still currently has COVID-19, who has no practice reps, throws the ball almost 30 times. Jonathan Taylor averaged 5.4 yards per carry throughout the entirety of a 4-quarter NFL football game, in which is 60 minutes. And I understand we didn't have the ball for 60 minutes, but when you're averaging over 5 yards per carry, tell me why on the last drive you don't get almost every single touch when they cannot stop you. Why does my quarterback, who has been off all game long, who missed multiple receivers, Zach Pascal on a high throw, T.Y. Hilton on a wide open throw, Michael Pittman on a low pass, a couple of passes that our receivers had to save because they had to go down and get it, in which immobilized them completely from moving the yards further or moving the chains further. I don't understand. In my mind, none of the play calls in that fourth quarter made any sense. There were some instances and some flashes where Frank made some beautiful calls on an RPO. Carson pulls down, runs for a first down on 3rd and 6. Great. 4th down, QB sneak, get behind the best offensive line of football. Absolutely amazing. And then you go in this fourth quarter and you try to get fancy and cute. This isn't fucking Oregon in 2014 with Chip Kelly and Marcus Mariota. The fact that we're running as many bubble screens as we do as the Colts makes no sense. Do we have great blocking wide receivers? Absolutely. Do we have 2 great tight ends? Yes. And playmaking running backs? Absolutely. It is literally 2nd and 9, and Jonathan Taylor is eating. He was stopped for a gain of 1 yard the play before. We need the clock to continue to drain. We have 3 timeouts, and you get fancy. Frank Reich has single-handedly kept us from winning football games all season long. Carson Wentz was not Carson Wentz. And I'm going to take a bold take here and say he shouldn't have even fucking played. You can tell from the start he was not comfortable. He started 1 of 7. Then right before the half, he goes down and drives us down the field, and we score a touchdown. He looked great. Coming out of the half, outside of that play, of that luck, which, again, SportsCenter and all these media outlets are saying it's better to be lucky than to be talented. I don't give a fuck. Because if that was an interception, it's a whole different category. It's a whole different discussion. Carson escapes on the pressure, and he rolls out to the right. He's got about 5 yards in front of him. Get forward, run out of bounds, slide, make it productive. Because if you throw an interception into double coverage off of 1 foot, fading off to the side, great arm strength. It looked beautiful. 2 Raiders right there. Why is that thrown? I give Carson no pass. I give Frank Reich no passes. The defense did everything it needed to. Almost had 3 interceptions, had 2. Darius Leonard forces a fumble on the sideline to where the ball falls out of bounds. So it was a lucky roll for the Raiders. So technically, we should have had 4 turnovers today, and we lost this game by, to me, once again, I know it was 3 points. It should have been 10 points. The Colts did not show up. The Colts were not the Colts of the last couple of weeks. I didn't think we were going to beat the fucking Patriots. I was skeptical about the Cardinals. I thought that this was a for sure game that we overcame all the deficits that we did last week with COVID-19 and injuries, and this is what comes about. An embarrassing loss at home because, once again, Frank Reich cannot be impartial to Carson Wentz. I would have rathered a rookie quarterback and Sam Ehlinger be in this game and hand the ball off 35 times to Jonathan Taylor. They couldn't stop it. What did we need Carson to throw it 27 times for? Why did we need to get fancy and throw a bubble screen? It's under 4 minutes. Run the fucking football. The worst that happens, you gain 5 fucking yards, which is what he's been doing all game. And instead of 3rd and 9, it's goddamn 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. Our average yards to gain on 3rd down was over 7 yards. We completed under 40% of our 3rd down conversions all day today. We couldn't convert. We couldn't do anything. We found a way to sack the quarterback. We found a way to fucking get interceptions and force turnovers. We found a way to get a lot of pass breakups and make life a living hell for Derek Carr. Hell, Derek Carr looked under average or below average all game today because we were able to make his life hell. But we don't capitalize. We lose this game. And now, once again, we are in a win and get in situation, thankfully, because of the way the AFC has fallen. But that's because, again, of outlier circumstances, not because of us. If we make the playoffs, we're a first-round exit. Doesn't even matter. That's how mad I am. Like, if we would have won this game, we would have been surging. We would have been on a 3 or 4 game win streak. We would have been beating great teams, competitive teams, the motivation. We would have overcome everything. No. Frank Reich needs to be removed of all play calling opportunities. I'm not going to continue to repeat myself. He literally, number 28 from Wisconsin, the best player arguably in the league when it comes to running the football. And you're going to tell me you only gave him 20 touches in a game in which you led into the 4th quarter. There's no reason for 20 touches, bro. 5.4 yards per. I don't get it. I told you this personally, and I told you when we recorded on Thursday. I wouldn't be surprised Frank fucks it up. I don't trust him. I can't trust him.
Well, when I was going over the highlights from this game, because I didn't watch the entirety of the game. I was at work pretty much the entire day. The one thing that kind of stood out to me was a few things. The first off being that the Raiders did a very good job on 1st down defensively against Indianapolis, because there were multiple situations where Indy likes to run the ball on 1st down with JT, and usually that'll get somewhere between 3 to 5 yards. Sometimes he'll break it out. Sometimes he'll get like 7 or 8, or he busts it for like 10 to 15. But I thought Vegas did a very good job of limiting JT early on in some of those drives. And then not only that, they were able to keep up that defensive pressure against Indianapolis by forcing them into pretty difficult 3rd down situations where, you're talking about 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. Those are a lot less manageable to convert on those 3rd downs than when it's something like 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, or 3rd and 5. In those short yardage 3rd down opportunities, those are a lot more easier to convert. But you got to give Vegas some credit. They were able to put Indianapolis into some disadvantaged situations where they weren't able to capitalize on 3rd downs by converting them. And it's like you said, I think Indianapolis only converted like on 3 of 11 for their 3rd downs today. So it didn't work out in their favor. Defensively, this is something that I have to kind of focus on with Indy. In the most critical element of the game, or the most critical moment of the game, it's 3rd and 10. There's like 50 seconds left. They bring pressure on Derek, and he's able to escape because I think he made Darius Leonard jump, thinking that he was going to pass it, but he ended up kind of doing like a pump fake. And then he threw an absolutely beautiful ball to Hunter Renfrow for that 3rd down conversion. Indy gets a stop there. I'm not saying that you guys are going to march down the field and potentially get the game-winning field goal, but at least at that point, more likely than not, it's probably going to go to overtime, and then you kind of, roll the dice there. But defensively, they had some issues late in the game when they needed to get some stops. And to Derek Carr's credit, he was able to convert some big plays on that last drive that set up Vegas for that game-winning field goal to give them that 23-20 win. But Kevin, it's like you mentioned, and this is really the last point that I want to make about Indy here, is going into the game, you know that Carson Wentz is clearly not 100%. At best, he's probably 75-80%. At best. I would have given the ball to Jonathan Taylor 30 times in that game. Minimum. Because I'm not saying that Carson's like completely, immobilized, like he's not going to be able to do anything. He could still be serviceable, but not as much, compared to if he was 100%. If he was 100%, then I could understand him throwing the ball the amount of times that he did in this game. But that wasn't the case. Jonathan Taylor should have had at least 30 carries in this game because he's a much more reliable person on the field to rely on because he's healthy. He's not sick with COVID. Carson still is. Now, Frank should have known that going into the game. Carson was sick throughout the entire week, and yet his play calling didn't really represent that in any way, shape, or form. And I think it kind of goes to the idea that you and I have been talking about off camera for multiple times throughout the season, is that I think that Frank Reich is too partial with Carson because they have a very good relationship outside of football. And I do think that to a certain extent, that actually works as a hindrance against the team's success because I think he does want to see Carson flourish. I think he wants to see him succeed. And trust me, I think everybody does as well. But when you have one of the best running backs, arguably probably like a top 3 running back throughout the entire league in Jonathan Taylor, you got to let him get some carries other than just getting 20 and getting about 5.5 yards per carries or 5.5 yards per carry. JT should have had at least 150 yards rushing today. And I think that there were some opportunities that I think Indy let slip. And I do think that by and large, when you look at this game in total, Carson missed some throws. Carson, I understand he was sick, wasn't 100%, but there's some throws he's got to make, didn't convert. And I think Frank was really kind of the main culprit for this loss today because defensively, even though that they did give up that game-winning drive to Vegas at the end, I thought that Indy's defense played stellar throughout most of the game by being able to get pressure on Derek Carr, being able to force turnovers, but in the end, it's not enough. And I think it really does kind of lay at the feet at Frank Reich. When it comes to Frank Reich, I think a question has to be asked about, is he the best coach for them moving forward? It's too early for me to tell to say whether or not that he should get fired from his position. If they miss the playoffs, I think that's definitely a bigger question to ask then. If they make the playoffs, then I wouldn't even consider it. But a question does have to be raised about his partial tendencies with Carson Wentz. I think the relationship between the two of them has become too personal, and it's affecting the offensive capabilities of that team. And I think it's just because I don't think that Jonathan Taylor is necessarily getting the respect that he deserves so early on in his career. Granted, this is only his second year in the league. This guy can literally put up 2,000 yards rushing when given the opportunities to get the ball. And with that offensive line, he can make that happen. But I think Frank tries to balance it out with Carson, try to get this idea of not only can Carson really produce well, but to get JT cooking as well. I think there are some days where you just got to let JT cook. And if the defense you're going up against slows down JT, then you can get Carson his shine. But I just think to a certain extent, I think by and large, I think it's just that relationship is affecting the team's offensive success. And Carson's had a good year relatively. He has. But it's just there are certain play calls, and it doesn't take much. It's like 5 or 6 calls a game that can really determine the outcome of a game. And You combine that with some of the throws that Carson missed, that could be your ball game. So,
It
I,
makes me laugh that we play the Patriots, who who are known for being a very dominant defensive team, and Carson goes for 54 yards
mhm.
when healthy, but Jonathan Taylor will bust it open for what, a buck 70 on the ground. Granted, a lot of it came from one big ass
Yeah, it was one
run,
play.
but still, that ability to bust a play open, that ability for him to go out there and make a defense fall back,
Mm-hmm.
he's hindered every week. There's no bro. There's no 27 fucking attempts is unnecessary.
Yeah,
There's
from Carson.
zero reason for why. For why? Carson,
You,
we won a game with 54 yards. What the fuck are you getting fancy for, bro? Give him the goddamn football.
I mean, it was just a couple of weeks ago when the Patriots played the Bills and they ran the ball 45 times. Granted, the weather was atrocious, but they ended up winning the game still. Granted, that's not probably the way that you want to win, but I really do think that Colts fans look at like that Patriots Bills game from a couple of weeks ago in Buffalo when the weather was atrocious and think, man, I wish we gave Jonathan Taylor and Naheem Hines that many attempts running the football. Would you be mad about 45 attempts running the ball between the two of them?
No,
And
no,
even if you guys,
no,
even if you guys lost, would you be mad about that?
no. Because if it's productive, it's no reason to stop, bro. The oldest say, if it ain't fucking broke, don't fix it. Let it be. This is ridiculous. Frank Reich is an incredible person. If you guys haven't seen, look at Hard Knocks. A motivator, a great speaker, a great team leader, a great guy to rally and want to play behind and for. Like, the team loves him. He's a great coach. Shit play caller.
It happens. It happens. But, you know, I mean, that's something that they can work out in the offseason. Maybe they can elevate somebody within the coaching staff to do the offensive play calling, or maybe bring somebody in. Because I don't know if I think he realizes what he has with JT. There's no doubt about that. It's just
No.
that I don't know, just it seems like to me just that relationship with him and Carson is really kind of affecting that team's offensive flow. And that is kind of a big point of emphasis because I'll be honest with you. Indianapolis is a 9-17, a team, excuse me. This team should realistically be like 11-5 or well, no, excuse me, they would be whatever.
12
It
and
doesn't matter.
4. We blew 3 double-digit leads this
Honestly,
year.
yeah, like this team should realistically have about 11 or 12 wins. Realistically, because they've let some games slip.
Big time.
This one being one, and then maybe the Titans game a couple months ago at home.
And the Ravens game.
Yeah. So even though that this team's record doesn't really reflect how good this team can be, this team is really a couple plays away from being at the top of the AFC South. That's how close they are. But it's like I said, a couple plays here and there, they don't go your way, and they can really dictate the outcome of some of these games, and it has for Indy. And now they're in a situation where they have to win next week to get in.
Yeah.
And
it'll be a great day for me.
God forbid they go to Jacksonville next week and screw it up.
Y'all won't see me. Y'all will not see me. Kyle will be recording by himself because I will be probably somewhere arrested. Like I will probably have destroyed my apartment. Sabo will have gotten loose and found another owner. If we lose to the what's next on the topic, bro? What's next on the agenda? I can't even fathom that right now.
I'm just saying, New England put up 50 points today. I know we're not talking about them in today's episode, but it's like literally just watch our film for you guys going into next week and try to replicate some of that. That's it. Because we were able to run the ball effectively against Jacksonville. We were able to pass against them effectively. Bro, I mean, we put up 50 points against them. It was a 40-point win. I'm not saying that the Colts should beat them by 40 points next week, but it's like there's no way that you guys should lose that game. There's no way. But if you guys do,
I tweeted out. The Colts are lucky I don't have access to the locker room. Like I don't care if I get jumped by the 53-man roster and the coaching staff, bro. I'm going right up to Frank Reich and I'm saying, do you hate me? Like, do you not want to win Do y'all not want I would have popped off. I would have popped off. I would have just went nuts. Heaven forbid we lose and they're in the state of Florida because they're in Jacksonville. Bro, I might drive halfway up there, and as the game's going on, I might make my way to fucking Jacksonville and go at that bus, bro, because we gonna have some problems if we lose to Jacksonville.
I tell you what, this man Frank Reich has taken away some years from your life, bro.
Yeah,
From this season.
I was stress cleaning all day today. Throughout the whole game, bro, I cleaned the kitchen. I cleaned both my bathrooms. I washed clothes. I washed my sheets. I cleaned my room, bro. I cleaned the office. I brushed Sabo. Like, dude, I couldn't stop. I was on the edge.
Were you pacing at the end of the game?
No, I wasn't pacing. I was in the corner by my lanai. Like, I was literally just sitting in the corner, leaning on the wall, like with my hand over my face. And then obviously that third down play happened where Hunter Renfrow got that score, and I just popped the squat on the ground.
Just pure disgust.
I would have rather they score than the fingernail of Kenny Moore hitting the fucking cleat of Hunter Renfrow, and I'm like, God just he like Bruce Almighty, like on some fucking smite me almighty smiter, like on some bullshit, bro. I was not having it.
It's like you said, bro. It all comes down to next week. God forbid they lose.
I'm down bad, bro. I'm down bad.
All right, so you ready to dive into this next one? We got
I think I need it.
We got the Buccaneers and the Jets. You want to set this one up for me, or?
I mean, well, obviously, the Bucs are one of the better teams in the league, and the Jets are not. The Jets actually came out in this game, and they took the lead. I believe it was 24-10, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like they were going to go and upset the Tampa Bay defending champion Buccaneers. And in GOAT fashion, Tom Brady and this team just literally do not a 180. They do like a 360 fuck you to the Jets, and they just take off. And the Jets did not score for the rest of the game, and the Bucs go out and win this game 28-24. Now, Kyle, my question to you is, does this lack of a performance or lack of urgency in the first half show that the Buccaneers might not be as good as they were last year?
There's definitely some issues with this Tampa Bay team. And to me, it really does kind of show on the offensive side of the ball. Remember, Tom was talking about this in some of his post-game press conferences after some of their wins and after some of their losses. And the way that he said it is he doesn't believe that this team offensively has hit its peak or has hit its pinnacle, meaning like where they're just running on all cylinders and they're not missing a beat. And this was another one of those performances where it just seemed like the offense, they would be able to move the ball down the field. It's just that they couldn't get into the red zone and convert. And I mean, it got to a point where you're down 24-10 on the road in the third quarter. I mean, for God's sakes, you're losing to guys like Zach Wilson. You're losing to guys like Braxton Berrios on the offensive side for the Jets. I think Michael Carter was one of their better running backs in this game, or maybe like Ty Johnson. I mean, the Jets are not that good of a football team, but even despite that, being up 14 points at home against a team like Tampa, you got to give them some respect for that. But in typical Jets fashion, they fall apart. And that's where you got to give Tampa a lot of credit, because despite the whole drama that happened with Antonio Brown leaving in a bizarre fashion, I know Kevin and I will get into that a little bit later. Tom was able to rally the troops in the offensive side of the ball and be able to connect with some relatively unknown guys, unless you're like a diehard Tampa fan. I mean, he was hitting up receivers like Tyler Johnson, Cyril Grayson, Brashad Perriman. I mean, some of these guys were either on the practice squad or they've been kind of playing like third and fourth fiddle to guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin just a couple of weeks ago. But Tom was able to really light it up in that fourth quarter when it mattered the most, and was able to get some huge drives that ended up leading to the game-winning touchdown when he hit what's the guy's name, Cyril Grayson Jr. on like that 45-yard touchdown with like 20 seconds left. I mean, it was a beautiful ball from Tom. I mean, literally, it was a pinpoint pass like on his freaking helmet. So give a lot of credit to Cyril for getting that catch, being able to bring it down into the end zone. But I guess one of the things that I kind of have to take away from this Tampa win over the Jets is I think moving forward, with all of the drama that's been kind of circulating around Tampa the last couple of weeks, you lose Chris Godwin last week to a torn ACL, or that was, I think, 2 weeks ago, excuse me. And then you lose Antonio Brown with his shenanigans. Offensively, this team is no longer the same as it was 2-3 weeks ago. So that's something that this team is going to have to adjust to on the fly moving forward going into the playoffs. Granted, they're sitting at a 12-4 record, so they're still in a pretty good position as far as their playoff seeding goes. But I guess as far as I'm concerned, my status report on this team with Tampa is this team is a lot weaker than last year. I think their Super Bowl odds are definitely in question. But when you have a guy like Tom, things are still possible. I mean, the guy threw 410 yards today, had 3 touchdowns on 34-50 passing. He's still getting it done, bro. I mean, gets another game-winning drive. He has like over like 60 in his career, and he was able to get it done when it mattered the most. But it is a little bit concerning when you only beat a team like the Jets by 4 points, and that's something to definitely take notice of moving forward. But even so, it was a decent win despite all the drama that took place in that game. And Tom came through when it mattered the most. So good on Tom. Good on the defense for being able to stop the Jets on that 4th and 2 on like the 15-yard line with like 2.5 minutes to go. They were able to make a big play there that led to that game-winning drive from Tom. So all in all, decent win from Tampa, but there's some things to be concerned about with Tampa moving forward.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think they're the same team that they were last year. Granted, their record seems to be, what was it? It's a little bit better. They were like 11-5 last year,
They were 11-5 last year. They're sitting at
and they were
12
the
and 4
wild
right now.
card.
Yeah.
So, technically, by the standards of a 16-game season, they have improved. But in terms of offensively, I would agree with Kyle completely. Their lack of consistency on the ground and in the air at certain points, it kind of looks like it's affecting them go forward. It sucks that they need to kind of wait for that switch or that like moment where they realize, oh shit, we kind of look really bad right now, or like, oh my god, if we don't turn this around, we're going to lose. And then, nevertheless, you go out and lose to a team that Tom historically has dominated the majority of his career in New England. And to a rookie quarterback, nonetheless. So that's definitely a bad look that you don't want going into the postseason. I completely understand they're missing a lot of weapons. Kyle already stated the amount of people that are out, both on the offense and the defense. So, I mean, like, you can't really blame them if they would have faltered. But again, the fact that they still have the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady under center, you would hope that moments like this continue to happen in which he was able to carry them to the promised land. Now, in this debacle, in this entire situation, Kyle, you probably won't go on double screen. Antonio Brown, who has a history of some interesting antics throughout his career. That's a nice way to put it. Randomly in the third quarter decides to just literally, in a nutshell, tell Bruce Arians to fuck himself and proceeds to strip down to his no shirt where he throws his pads, throws his undershirt, gloves, and everything into the stands, walks off the field of his own reconnaissance, isn't ejected, isn't kicked out, wasn't told to leave, just proceeds to leave the field and then runs onto the field and starts chanting and starts getting the crowd animated like he got ejected for saving a woman from getting hit by a bus. Like he committed a beautiful, beautiful act, a beautiful deed, and immediately gets cut within seconds of the game ending. And I mean, like, a reporter had asked Bruce Arians the status of AB. He was like, he's no longer a Buck. Let's just move on after that. Tom Brady was asked what the hell happened. Tom Brady took the high road and goes, I hope he gets what he needs. You know, we love him here, but, you know, like, we got to move on. We got to work on next week. So, Kyle, I'm asking you, is this the final fucking straw with this guy? Because it seems like he finally – we've said that it looked like he snapped before mentally. It looked like this man is just not there anymore.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say at this point that Antonio Brown has played his last snap in the NFL. It's one thing to have these off the field issues when the season's either going on or not, because I mean, we have seen in the NFL in recent memory that you could do some stuff off the field that is, you know, not necessarily the best thing to do off the field, but you will still get playing opportunities just because the athletic ability of some of these guys outweighs the mistakes that they've made off the field. Well, in this case, Antonio Brown decided to quit on the team. And that is pretty much the number one cardinal sin of any athlete. I don't care what sport it is, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, it doesn't matter. You don't quit on your team in any way, shape, or form. It's just frowned upon. And what's even worse in this case is that he left in the middle of the drive. I mean, there's like a camera shot of AB giving like peace signs when he's scampering in the end zone. When his own offense is still on the field trying to play. It goes to show just what is this guy doing? Like, what is he on? It's just, AB is a phenomenal athlete. I think we could all recognize, the level of talent that this guy possesses. I mean, the stats, his production, shows that without a doubt. But the amount of shenanigans, the amount of antics that this guy has brought upon not only himself, but the teams that he's been associated with, I think it has finally gotten to a point where teams are no longer going to accept it. You would kind of think that just because the guy gets another opportunity after another opportunity, yet he screws himself over by doing something like this. But to me, I think this is the last one, because even despite what he can bring to the field, you never know what this guy is going to put on the field. This guy is just too much of a loose cannon as far as I'm concerned. And in the manner, in the way that he did it, it's kind of very similar to what Vontae Davis did with the Bills a couple years ago, where he retired at halftime. Granted, AB didn't retire. It just kind of reminds me of that. But to quit on your team in the middle of an offensive drive in the third quarter, I've never seen anything like that. I've been watching football for as long as I can remember. This is the first time that I can vividly say, or honestly say, I've never seen anything like this. It's unparalleled to anything that I've witnessed, either from what I've watched on television with the NFL or something that I experienced actually playing the game in high school. Throughout all of my time, I've never seen anything like this, where the guy just leaves on his own accord, throws up deuces as he's leaving the field, and gets cut instantaneously after the game. I've never seen anything like it. So, I just kind of hope that AB kind of gets some help in some fashion, one way or another, because it seems like he was going through some sort of bipolar break or something, just because it seemed so bizarre. You never really see something like that from anybody. But I don't really see how he gets back onto an NFL team. It's one thing if you get in trouble with the law in like a misdemeanor fashion, or for God's sakes, even a felony, because some guys in the NFL, they're able to get back onto another team after a felony. But when it comes to quitting on your team in the middle of the game, I don't know how teams are going to be able to stand for that moving forward. So, hopefully AB gets some help that he needs. But as far as his NFL career goes, I think it's open and shut at this point. I think it's over.
Yeah, there's not really much else to say. I mean, from the antics in which he provided in Pittsburgh, and Mike Tomlin having the patience of basically a saint to deal with him for as long as they did, to then go through the drama that he had in Oakland, and then to obviously go through everything that had gone on in New England for that 1 or 2 weeks stint in which he was there, to then carry that over into the false vaccination record, and now this whole thing of what can you say? I mean, I don't want to hear it. This is an example of there are plenty of people on this earth that are just gifted in so many ways that just throw opportunities basically into the wind and say, I don't even care. Like, how do you basically quit on your team? As an athlete, how do you look at your team and you say, well, you know what? Fuck you guys. I'm done. They helped you revitalize your career and got a Super Bowl. They still kept you on the roster, knowing that you lied to them about your vaccination status and God knows what else. And I understand that I might be being hasty because we don't know what was said in the locker room at halftime or what was said to Antonio Brown for him to react in this manner. But I don't think that anything outside of a racial slur or, like a fist fight would have, warranted this kind of reaction because he walked off the field while his teammates were pleading with him. You can see, they zoom into the sideline. OJ Howard and Mike Evans are like, bro, chill, like, stop. Like, Mike Evans is trying to stop him and making him keep his pads on, and AB's just like, no, I'm done. And he throws everything, and Mike Evans just leaves, bro. He's like, yo, I'm over this. I got to keep this basket case with his head on, and I got to worry about winning this football game. Like, he's an immediate distraction. He's got plenty of issues on and off the field. And what's crazy is the play before he started going nuts, like whether that was before, I wasn't watching the game, so I don't know. The play before that they continue to show where he cooked a Jets secondary player, like a corner, and he ended up like being wide open and making an incredible play. It shows that he still has the capability. He just doesn't have it here. And I don't want to hear it. Players like him, Greg Hardy, Ray Rice,
Josh Gordon,
who have been given chance after chance after chance after chance. Obviously, Ray Rice, excuse me, I take that back because he was just the one exiled. He's done. But you know what I mean? Players of that magnitude that have such talent that are given so many opportunities. For what? Why? Clearly, they don't care. And I saw a stat line. If AB would have caught like 2 or 3 more passes, had 50 yards, and a receiving touchdown, he was about to make $1 million today. Like, just within incentives. He literally needed 2 more catches on the day. He needed 50 total yards receiving, and he needed 1 receiving touchdown to receive $333,000 for each of those incentives, which of course would have added up to just about $1 million. So you threw out $1 million to be an asshole. Good for you. There are hundreds of people trying to get into this league to fill a roster spot, and you just want to be a head case. Okay. I don't want to hear about Antonio Brown anymore. I'm over it. I don't feel bad for him. I don't feel bad for whatever it is he's got going on in his brain. Clearly, he doesn't want to take care of it. Clearly, he doesn't give a shit. Go be crazy somewhere else and not a distraction to your team because you don't deserve to be in the league. That's it.
I was just so surprised that, I mean, have you ever seen anything like that before? I mean, you've been watching football
I've seen fist fights. I've seen, teammates have to be separated. I've seen ejections because, like you get suspended mid-game or like a coach dismisses you because you're being an asshole. I've never seen a player just straight up just undress and leave, like, ever in any sport.
Yeah, and look happy while doing it. I mean, when you think about it, when you really think about the whole Antonio Brown situation, if anybody's probably the most pissed about this, it's probably Tom.
Because he keeps vouching for him.
Because Tom brought him on board. Oh, for God's sakes, he let him live in his house while AB was setting up his living arrangements in Tampa. Gives him a golden opportunity to play with one of the best quarterbacks that's ever played the game, to play on a Super Bowl contending team, get a Super Bowl championship out of it, and you respond in this fashion? I mean, at some point you just have to look at it. It's like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, what's the point? Like, I can't really see anything so bad to the point where he just takes off his pads, he throws his shirt, he throws his gloves into the stand and leaves on his own accord in the manner that it happened. Because to me, I watched the minute and a half interaction where he's just going absolutely ballistic on the sideline. I don't think there was anything ever said that would warrant that type of response from him. He just lost it. And he just had this, I'll say it, he had a meltdown. There's no other way to say it. He's had meltdowns in the past, specifically with Pittsburgh. The one where I think he flipped like a water cooler in the middle of the game, and that was a couple years ago. But this, bro, to quit on your team in the middle of the game when your own offense is on the team, or when your own offense is on the field, and I imagine they probably saw him leave the field. They saw that. They probably won't admit it publicly. They probably watched it like, what's he doing? And the fact of the matter is that somehow, despite all that drama, that Tampa was able to win that game with all of the shenanigans that happened with him leaving that way, it kind of is a testament of like how they're able to somehow compartmentalize all of that drama to somehow get a road win over the Jets. So you got to give Tampa a lot of credit for being able to not wither
They
under the
weathered the
pressure
storm.
and somehow be able to get a huge win. And really, you have to give a lot of credit to the guys like Tyler Johnson, Cyril Grayson. I mean, those guys, and even Brashad Perriman as well. I mean, those guys have been relatively been on the low end of the depth chart for their wide receiving core this year, but they made some huge plays today. And you got to give those guys a lot of credit and a lot of respect for being able to hang in there and rise to the occasion when the moment was brightest in that specific moment when they made those plays. But bro, AB
Done, bro.
he's done.
Dunzo.
He's done.
Dunzo.
That it's the cardinal sin. It's the number one cardinal sin of any athlete. You do not quit on your team. It's even worse when you do it in the middle of the game. I mean, the only thing I could even really kind of relate it to was the Vontae Davis situation a couple years ago where he retired at halftime. You think those guys were salty? Hell yeah, they were salty. And I imagine Bruce Arians, everybody on that offense, they tried to keep a straight face about it during those post-game press conferences. Bro, they're livid.
That locker room conversation, I would have killed to be a fly in that locker room. Like, just to hear what the hell they were saying.
Bro, at that point, it's like, bro, like, obviously, you hope that, like, he can get, like, the help that he needs because obviously something is off. But, like, at the same time, they're like, dude, like, screw him.
Yep.
Like, there's no
100%.
place for him here. There's no place for him here anymore. And I really don't see how he can end up on an NFL roster after something like this. We've seen things in the past where guys are able to overcome their transgressions off the field and be a productive member of another team. But this, no. It's over. You don't quit on your team, specifically in the middle of the game. I've never seen anything like it. And hopefully for AB, it works out somehow. I'm not saying like I don't know if he's going to end up on the field again. I highly doubt it. I'm just saying like just as an individual, just as just a regular person. I hope that he can find some sort of inner peace from it all. But I mean, he looked pretty happy on the way back after the game in that Uber ride. You know, looked pretty happy about it, and then subsequently dropped a single. So apparently he's already kind of transitioning into
his new lifestyle.
Yeah, apparently he's gonna be a rapper or something like that. So that'll be fun to watch.
Well, good for him.
That'll probably crash and burn, but you know, we'll see. But
that's all I'm talking about on that one, honestly, because there are plenty of other things that we could be talking about. Because I'll tell you one thing, you know, a player didn't give up today, even though they were down early.
Who?
Joe fucking Burrow.
Not only that, bro. You see Ja'Marr Chase too?
Well, Ja'Marr wouldn't get what he was getting if it wasn't for Joe Burrow. The important part, the quarterback was like, you know, we down, but put the team on my back right quick. Ja'Marr, you're out there. Go fucking get it. That press conference, yo, that shit was so funny. He was like, you guys have seen the meme? Jamar's out there somewhere. Fuck it.
Yep. Chuck it. But it used to be the Tyreek one. It used to be the one with Pat.
Yeah, with Pat. Yeah. But, I mean, dude, just to kind of tie that up and how we transition, guys, the Cincinnati Bengals have won the AFC North. They come back from behind and beat the Kansas City Chiefs, who are on their own respective 2-month win streak, and they win by the score of 34-31. Kyle, I said it last week, and I know now you're starting to be a little bit of a believer. Mm-hmm. Is Cincinnati a scary team in this postseason?
I'm going to be honest. They might low-key be like a dark horse team that could possibly win a Super Bowl. Now, I'm not saying that, oh, yeah, they're going to go straight to the Super Bowl and that's it. You know, that they're going to, be a Super Bowl champion team this year. But they have the pieces to be able to make a very good run in the playoffs this year. And here's why. This team is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they're able to overcome them in multiple ways. And it's really specifically because of the offense. The offense has really kind of carried this team throughout the entire year. And Joe Burrow, Kevin, in the last 2 games, this guy has thrown for almost 1,000 yards passing. The guy threw for almost damn near 550 yards last week against Baltimore. And then he follows it up with another 400-yard performance against one of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team in the NFL, in the Kansas City Chiefs, and leads a huge comeback in the process as well, because Kansas City, in the first half of that game, had a pretty comfortable lead over Cincinnati. I believe at one point, KC was up in that game 28-14. But despite being down, Joe Burrow was able to rally the troops together, and he was able to put on a sensational performance against Kansas City. Not only that, you got Ja'Marr Chase, who's probably the offensive rookie of the year. He pretty much probably sealed it after this performance for getting 11 catches, over 260 yards receiving, and 3 touchdowns against the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, that's probably the best receiving performance that we will see the entire year. And it came in probably one of the biggest matchups of the entire year. And, not only that, defensively, I thought since he played a really good job, or they did a really good job in the second half, being able to contain KC to only 3 points in the third and fourth quarters. So when you look at this team as a whole, yeah, they do have some weaknesses, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. They can be had. But if the offense is clicking and the defense is able to get some opportunistic turnovers, or they're able to get some sacks on a consistent basis, this team can have a really good run in the AFC playoffs this year. Like I said, they could be one of those dark horse teams that does actually end up somehow getting to the Super Bowl. I would say that the odds for that to happen are still high. I mean, the odds against them are stacked pretty high. But if they play their cards right, they don't turn the ball over, Joe keeps playing at the level that he's at, and that defense is able to limit teams to under 20, 25 points a game, bro, anything's possible. So I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility that that team could make a possible Super Bowl run, but let's just say this. They have definitely caught my attention after this big win over KC. And I'll leave it at that. So I'll let you have the floor from here.
Dude, and I said what I said in terms of Joe Burrow not quitting because he genuinely did it almost dolo, because the run game was almost completely non-existent this week. Joe Mixon had, I believe, if I am reading this correctly, 40 yards, 46 yards. As a team, they only had 60. So, again, I know they were down for the majority of the game, but that just goes to show Joe is not going to quit. That's just going to show that Joe Burrow was the number one pick for a reason. That goes to show that without an offensive line, because he was sacked 4 times and pressured even more, that he was not going to quit. Whether the joke of, fucking Ja'Marr Chase is down there is true or not, they did it against arguably the best team in the NFL. They did it against arguably one of the best defenses in the NFL up to this point. They did it against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending AFC champions, the defending AFC West champions, or current AFC West champions, a juggernaut, if you will, of power that has dominated the AFC for the last 3 seasons. Joe Burrow said, I'm home, I'm Joe fucking Burrow, and I'm going to carry this team to victory, and I'm going to get my team a division title. This is a confidence in a young group of players that you don't see very often, and I agree with Kyle 100%. This is a team that rides a wave with a victory like this, with a division title that they haven't won in God knows how long, into a postseason run, currently as what, the 2nd seed or 3rd seed, and they go out and they win the Super Bowl. Will it happen? Who knows? But the possibility of how they're playing at the most important time is pivotal. And they're young, so they're going to ride this heat into the playoffs. It's not like they're going to win by a default, or like they lost 2 in a row and then they got in because somebody lost and they, what I mean? Like those weird circumstances that certain teams need to get into a playoff berth. No. They solidified their way by winning the division on their own. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and they have dominated their division for the majority of the season in a very comfortable fashion, might I add. They smacked up Baltimore by a total of over 80 points this season, which is just unheard of when it comes to Baltimore being the better team over the course of the last decade or so. So, Joe Burrow, scary. Ja'Marr Chase, when he has his head on straight, because we all know that he gets into his own head with his drops, scary. Joe Mixon, we all know, is a top 5 back this season in terms of purpose yards. And God, man, Kyle said the only question mark is that defense, and that's true. But if they can find a way to just outscore others, which this offense is very capable in keeping teams within a certain number on the defensive side, I could see an AFC Championship berth and a rematch against the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead, because this rivalry seems like it's going to be a little interesting if it ends up coming back to fruition in the game that matters most to go to the Super Bowl.
I do have to make a point about KC, though, in this game. I can't excuse the fact that they only scored 3 points in the second half. That, to me, listen, you got Patrick Mahomes, arguably, if not the best quarterback in the NFL. 3 points in the second half. That offense, I will say this.
Is that a kudos to Cincy's defense, though? Or was that miscues?
There were some plays that Cincy's defense made. They made some adjustments. But there were some plays that KC left on the field out there. And that was kind of indicative of some of the later drives that they had in the fourth quarter. They had some chances to get some touchdowns, but they just couldn't capitalize. So, but when you look at KC overall, they were relatively balanced. You know, they had about 260-yard passing. They had 155 yards on the ground, which is phenomenal for KC, because KC, they have the running personnel to be able to get that type of yardage from the backs that they have. They just don't typically do that because they usually rely on Pat to kind of carry that offense. But from an offensive standpoint, that's pretty good balance. When you're getting 260 yards passing, you're getting 155 on the ground. You have over 400 yards of total offense. But man, they left some plays out on the field, and they even won the time of possession today. So, you got to give Cincy some credit. They were able to make a pretty solid comeback in the second half to be able to overcome that deficit. But KC, that was a game that they probably should have won. And it didn't help the fact that they had 10 penalties as well. They shot themselves in the foot a couple times. But, even despite the fact that KC did lose this game, they're still one of the better teams, if not the best team in the AFC as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they're sitting at an 11-5 record. I believe I don't know if they actually have the number 1 seed anymore.
They don't.
Yeah, because I think the Titans actually have the number 1 seed right now.
Yep.
Which is absolutely crazy.
Because they own the tiebreaker against the Chiefs.
Yeah. So that's something that they're going to have to kind of hopefully work through. They gotta win next week to try to reclaim that, and then hope that they get some help from Tennessee, but it doesn't really seem likely. But as far as Cincy is concerned, I want to see it happen. I do. I think it'd be fun.
I wouldn't mind.
It'd be fun to see this team ride the wave into possibly getting into the Super Bowl. Are the odds stacked against them? 100%. There's no doubt about that. But this team has a swagger. They have a confidence about them that is palpable. And as long as they don't shoot themselves in the foot with turnovers, penalties, stupid mental mistakes, this team can go somewhere this season, in the postseason specifically. Now, we're going to have to see how this team performs in the playoffs, because we haven't seen this team perform in the playoffs yet. So Joe Burrow is going to definitely have to have some of these games in the playoffs where he rises above the pressure. Now, we haven't seen him play in the playoffs yet, so this will kind of be all new for him. It'll be new for that team because, when you look at this roster as a whole, they are relatively young across the board. So, there may be a point of emphasis like, is this team necessarily ready to deal with all that type of pressure? Casey's been there. Casey can handle that. But can Cincy? Time will kind of tell on that one.
Can I be the first to say that Joe gives off those vibes like he don't give a fuck what game it is, bro? Nope. The man, I know college is totally different, bro. This man ain't batting eye in the college football playoffs, bro. This man didn't even blink. He was like,
yeah,
smoking his fucking cigar, yo. I don't know what it is, bro. I've never seen a more poised rookie like him. You look at Joe Burrow, the way he's been playing the last.
He's not a rookie anymore.
But I'm saying, you look at Joe. He doesn't look like a second-year player.
He doesn't carry himself like that.
He looks at game. He looks during the game like he's been a vet for 4 or 5 years. That's the vibe I get off of him. Granted, he could absolutely shit the bed in the playoffs. It's not here yet. But if I had to put money on it, I would say the man remains poised, man. He just doesn't care.
Yeah, like it's kind of different because Patrick got the starting job in his second year, correct?
Yeah.
And he threw 50 touchdowns. So Joe has definitely he's had some really great games this year. Really, the last two have been absolutely phenomenal from him. But it's Pat, bro.
I
Pat's been
know.
there. Pat's been there.
I know.
Pat's already been to two Super Bowls.
I'm not saying he go win if they play against each other. I'm not saying that Pat go lose. I'm just saying in the postseason that is coming, they've clinched their berth. They get a home game. Dude, I feel like he's just going to look at the opposing team and be like, all right, round it on up. Fuck it, Ja'Marr down there somewhere. Dude is crazy. This
Dude,
kid, I'm telling you, I don't know what it is. I get goosebumps watching him play.
you know what's kind of crazy though is like we're kind of in that transitionary period as far as like these young quarterbacks goes in figuring out, okay, what's going to be that next huge quarterback rivalry? Because really, like the last 10, 15 years or so, it was like Tom versus Peyton, or maybe like Tom versus Big Ben, or Big Ben versus like Joe Flacco. Like those were kind of those big quarterback rivalries that we saw. Even like Aaron Rodgers versus like Drew Brees, or Aaron Rodgers versus Russell Wilson. I mean, you're talking about these monumental quarterback battles. And now you're kind of seeing that next generation come into the fold where it looks like that Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow one. Bro, those are going to be some good battles coming throughout the next 5 to 10 years or so. And really, we'll kind of have to see what the rest of the NFL turns out with some of these younger quarterbacks goes. Because I imagine, guys like me, even like Mac Jones, Kyler Murray, you can maybe even say guys like I don't know how things are going to work out with Jalen Hurts, for example. But maybe
Yeah,
like Dak,
Lamar
maybe
Jackson.
like Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott. Like, there's going to be some really great quarterback battles that we're going to see moving on forward. But there's going to be one that kind of like is above the rest. Really,
Of
like
course, there always is.
that Brady and Peyton one was kind of the biggest one, probably like the last 10, 15 years or so. Is there going to be one that kind of rivals that one? Maybe, but it's going to be fun to kind of see these guys kind of go into their own rivalries. And I think it's just going to be great to watch as these guys just continue to grow and get more comfortable in their
Yeah.
younger years of their career.
The future of the NFL is bright, and I am very excited to see where it's going and how it's going to get there.
But I would love to see this possibly in the AFC Championship game or even in a divisional setting. I think it'd be
Whatever
great.
capacity, I want Burrow versus Mahomes part two.
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't even matter what stadium, but it would be wild if it was an Arrowhead.
Bro,
Because
I'm gonna lose my shit because that is gonna be a game I don't take my eyes off the screen.
oh yeah, oh yeah, we're even forgetting about a guy named Josh Allen too. I mean, granted, he didn't have the best game in Week 17. I mean, he had 3 interceptions against Atlanta, but you got to respect Josh Allen too. He's been playing phenomenal throughout his early part of his career. So,
Yeah. No, you're
but
right. You're right. But
but
I mean, like this next one is an example of a potential rivalry that could end up coming out of the NFC on the other side. Now, I
yep,
know that both quarterbacks are a little bit different as opposed to the two that we just talked about, but we're referring to Dak Prescott versus Kyler Murray. The Dallas Cowboys fall at home to the struggling Arizona Cardinals by the score of 25-22. Guys, the Cowboys scored 7 points through 3 quarters, and Arizona the entire game looked like they were just busting their ass, bro. I mean, like Dallas could not get it going. Unfortunately, they lose Michael Gallup for the season with a potentially torn ACL, so
mm-hmm.
much rest and much health to him. But as it stands, the Cardinals completely embarrassed the Cowboys, and in Dallas fashion, they always find a way to get embarrassed with competitive teams in December, or should I say, come playoff time.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle, what's your panic meter for Dallas? Because they could not stop Kyler Murray in that offense, and that Star-studded defense did not look very well at all today.
As far as my panic meter goes, I would say probably a 5, maybe a 6, because Kevin, I'm just going to be honest with you. Is this going to just be the same old Dallas? They've been one of the top tier teams in the NFL throughout most of the year, and they've already clinched their division in the NFC East. Really, there hasn't been that much competition compared to anybody outside of Dallas in that division this year. But Dallas needed this game against Arizona. There's no doubt about it. Just because even if they had won this game, let's say for example, even if they hadn't advanced their seeding in the playoffs, had like gotten another higher seed, at least they would maintain the same position. Well, with this loss, now they're down to the 4 seed because you had teams like Tampa and you had teams like LA win their respective games in week 17, and now they have hopped Dallas. So that's a huge blow for Dallas moving forward. And going into this game, there's no doubt about it that Arizona was clearly they were the team that was definitely struggling out of the two. Just because Dallas looked like absolute world beaters last week against Washington, where they put up, I think it was like 56 points, beat them like 56-14. Like, it wasn't even close. And then you lay an egg like this against Arizona.
At home, nonetheless.
It's unacceptable. And this was a game, it's like you mentioned, Arizona was winning this game from basically wire to wire. And it really didn't take it to the fourth quarter for Dallas to finally kind of get some rhythm, get some momentum to kind of make it a game at the end. But give credit where it's due. Arizona came to play today, despite the fact that the month of December was not very kind to them. And they were able to get a huge road win over a very good team in Dallas. So, with Arizona kind of, I guess, fixing some of the issues that they've been dealing with the last month, now they're kind of in the mix to hopefully improve their record that they're trying to finish off at 12-5. And Dallas is kind of looking at the same position. They're kind of looking at the same outlook compared to Arizona at this current moment in time. But I don't know why, Kev. It just seems like now Dallas is kind of slipping into their old ways where they've been getting a lot of hype the last couple months, maybe feeling themselves a little too much after that huge win against Washington last week, and then they have a game like this where they let it slip against Arizona. So I'm not going to say it's a full blown panic and say that, oh yeah, Dallas is screwed. They're going to get a first round exit. I'm not going to go that far yet, but it just seems like Dallas is kind of slipping back into their own ways. When something looks like it's going to go wrong, it tends to go that way. I'm just saying that it could be happening once again. But I'm going to have my panic meter at like a 5 or a 6 with them.
So I'm gonna actually increase that meter to about a 6 or a 7, only because I'm looking at their previous 4 games because they were also on a respective win streak of their own. To start it off, they played the Saints, and no disrespect, they didn't have Alvin Kamara. They were playing Taysom Hill. Kyle and I have mixed feelings with him because to us, he's not necessarily a quarterback in this league. You got the dub. It is what it is. Then you play Washington. Then you play the Giants. And then you play Washington again and absolutely blow the doors off them, right? So none of those teams jump out the page to really say that was competition. Arizona's the best team they've played in a month. Because the team before that, they played the Raiders, and the Raiders beat them 36-33, and I believe that was the Thanksgiving game. And right before that, they had lost to the Chiefs 19-9. So legit, they have not played a consistently good team in almost 2 months since the Chiefs. Dallas literally is like this mythological creature that everybody says exists. And then at the end of the year, when they're like, well, where is he? Kind of just disappears and ends up being like a fictional character, like a fucking like illusion in the clouds or something. Like, I thought I saw something. Like the boy that cried wolf, dude. Dallas is gonna win. It's Dallas's, and they fall to shit. You know what I'm saying? So I hate when Cowboys fans are always like, bro, it was a fluke. bro, we've been dominating. Haven't you seen what we've been doing? We have a defensive player of the year in Trayvon Diggs, who Kyle mentioned today, told me before we started recording, has given up over 1,000 yards to opposing receivers this season, even though he leads the NFL with what, 11 picks, 12 picks?
11.
So, you're worshiping a false god here because he is a great person at ball hawking, but when it comes to actual coverage, he's pretty dog shit. So let's calm it down with defensive player of the year when you got fucking Darius Leonard responsible for 10 turnovers as a linebacker. Okay? So calm the fuck down. If anybody's going to get it on Dallas, it's Micah Parsons as a rookie. But again, that's neither here nor there. So anyway, Dallas's defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. Dallas's offense couldn't get it going to the fourth quarter. Dak Prescott was the leading rusher on a team with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. Now, again, I understand completely that they were not in a position to run the ball for the majority of this game. But you're telling me Zeke couldn't get more than 16 yards in the first quarter? Because it was only 3-0 after one quarter. Obviously, Arizona scores 10 in that second quarter, but you're telling me there was no room for any type of rush at all? Like there was no possibility that Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore's offense just could not run the ball at all? One of the best lines in football couldn't create any space at the line of scrimmage? Because it just seems like that Dallas has gotten away from running the football this half of the season, and they're putting all their eggs in one basket on Dak Prescott. And as great as Dak has been, that's not enough. And I get it. The defense locked up in the fourth quarter and held Arizona to 3. They finally stepped up, but you can't put all this pressure on Dak and expect to win when you're down double digits the entire game. I mean, for God's sakes, what is this man supposed to do? He's not Superman. He's doing everything he possibly can to keep this team alive. Next week, you got a surging Philadelphia Eagles team. Granted, I expect Dallas to win, and we'll get into predictions next week. But I'm looking at that game, and I'm saying, could this be a revealing game for Dallas? Because Philly's on a roll right now, trying to get a wild card spot. Dallas is already clinched. They can't fall lower than 4 because they're a division winner. So it's like, do they rest and let Philly win? Do they try to compete to get back into the 3 or 2 spot? I don't know. And I think Philadelphia could potentially expose them with Jalen Hurts' confidence and the resurgence of this run game. So we will see what happens. But, dude, Dallas fuck around and loses next week, they might be a first-round exit too, because only good teams are left in the postseason right now, bro. If the season were to end today, what the hell do we have here? We have, oh my God, hold on. We have the San Francisco 49ers. We have the, what the hell? Oh, we have the New Orleans Saints on the bubble. We have the Eagles at 7, and we have the Cardinals as the 5th seed. So technically, if you want to be realistic, the 4 and the 5 would play against each other next week.
The week after, the 2 weeks from now.
But I'm saying if it ended today.
Yeah.
So you would just rematch them at home again, and do you think that you'd be able to beat them minus Michael Gallup? Do you think that they would magically just forget that they just beat you the week before? I don't think so. That's why I say I don't necessarily know how this is going to go.
With Dallas, it's just their recent history just tells me that they're just going to find a way to screw it up. And I know that this team is a lot different from prior teams in the past, because I'm going to be honest with you. I do like offensively this team. Dak's a good dude. Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, they can both get it popping when that offensive line is opening up run spaces for them. And then you got CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, who are probably some of the most reliable wide receivers that Dallas has had in quite some time. So offensively, this team is definitely capable of being able to light up any NFL defense. It's just, can they overcome just the ghosts that seem to just cling on to this team like freaking demons, and they just find a way to trip over themselves and screw it up? Because to me, that's where it seems like this team is trending towards. I don't know how it's going to happen, but they're just going to find some way.
They can't get out of their own way, bro.
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter of whether it was a team that was led by Tony Romo on the offensive side of the ball, or it's a team led by Dak Prescott. It just seems like if something goes bad It's just in their nature. It just happens. I mean, I think they've won what two playoff games in 25 years.
I
I
don't
think
know.
it's
I know Dak and Zeke got one of those wins.
yeah. I think Tony Romo got one throughout his whole tenure as their quarterback, but mm,
It ain't a good
it's
look, bro. It is
no.
not a good look.
It's like I said, Arizona was stumbling going into this game. That month of December was not kind to them,
And they're missing
and
D Hop and James Conner didn't play again.
that
I mean, it
that's
looks
not
even worse,
that's
bro.
not a good look. That's granted, there's a very good chance that these two teams are going to play each other again. It's kind of looking like that because Dallas is the 4 seed, right?
Yep.
LA and Tampa are ahead of them.
Yep.
I highly doubt that Tampa's losing to. I think they're playing
Carolina.
Carolina next week, and then if I were to look at the Rams, if I'm just going to pull up their schedule, then they play the 49ers next week. Now that's
And
actually going to be a pretty.
Arizona plays Seattle.
So I'm just saying this is going to get a little tricky for Dallas here because depending on how I see it, which is going to be Tampa probably wins next week. The Rams are probably going to beat the 49ers. I'd be kind of surprised if the 49ers were able to shock LA at home. But, I mean, who knows with the Rams? They damn near lost to the Baltimore on Sunday, so we'll kind of see how
They
that
lost
one
to
goes.
Baltimore, and they almost lost today.
Yeah, so we'll see. But as far as I'm concerned, Kevin, what's that one Migos song at the beginning where it goes something like somebody's in trouble?
So the
Yeah.
song we were listening to before the episode started? Yeah.
Yeah.
Bitches in
I,
trouble.
yeah, exactly. I just kind of think that Dallas is in that kind of realm, and not the good trouble, meaning like, oh, we're a team that needs to be feared. No. It's the opposite. Now,
No,
granted,
we're in fear.
yeah, we're in fear that we might screw this up and it goes sideways, but we'll see. I think Dallas does kind of bounce back against
Against
Philly
Philly.
next week, so I'm not too concerned about how they finish the regular season. God forbid they lose that game to Philly, then my panic meter might be like an 8. I'd bump it up probably that high
Yeah,
because
it'll be pretty bad.
that will not be a good look. You lose to the Eagles and Cardinals in back-to-back weeks to close out the season. That is not the way that you want to transition into the playoffs. No way, shape, or form.
Nope.
But I mean, with that said, we are going to transition into our last NFL topic, which is going to be a quick preview of the Monday night matchup between the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So to give you guys just an update on where both teams stand, Cleveland is sitting at a 7-8 record. They are currently out of the playoff mix after some results did not go their way that could have potentially kept them in the race to possibly get into the playoffs in the AFC. So they are technically out of the playoff race. The Steelers are still in it at a 7-7-1 record. That one tie surprisingly has them at the number 2 team in the AFC North, right behind I believe the Cincinnati Bengals. And this is a must-win game for Pittsburgh. There's no other way to describe it. If they win this game, they technically stay in the bubble as far as possibly getting into the playoffs at the end of the regular season. So, Kevin, to kick this one to you, who do you have winning this game between the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Can I just say I don't care, and then we move on? Because this game to me is high key irrelevant as shit. The Bengals are eliminated. I don't necessarily see Pittsburgh getting in because even if they win, they're going to need some teams to lose, including the two of us. God willing, that doesn't happen. But the point of the matter is, Pittsburgh at this point is playing for, in my eyes, respect. Ben is trying to end the season on some kind of a good note to at least say that I gave my team an opportunity to give one more postseason or one more chance at a crack of another Super Bowl. But the way that Pittsburgh has been playing the last couple of weeks, their ineptitude on offense, their inability to stop the opposing team's offense at least consistently because of the injuries they've been plagued with. I'm probably just gonna say I'm going to be a dick and I'm going to pick Cleveland because they have nothing to lose. I think Nick Chubb's going to have a really big game. I think that Baker Mayfield is going to be pissed that the Browns were eliminated. And, I don't necessarily have enough faith in Ben Roethlisberger to go out there and play to a high caliber level anymore. I know he's been playing really good the last couple of weeks. But again, if I had to make a prediction, I got Cleveland by like 7. I think Cleveland's going to try to fight for their own type of respect. And I don't think that Pittsburgh's going to have enough in the tank left.
I'm just going to pick Pittsburgh just because they're going to try to keep their playoff hopes alive with some sort of win here. They got absolutely embarrassed last week against the Chiefs. I mean, it was a disgraceful performance as far as I'm concerned, the way that the Steelers played against the Chiefs last week, where the Chiefs just blew the doors off them. I think they won like 36-10, where the game was basically over by halftime. So I imagine that Pittsburgh is going to try to find some sort of rebound effort here to try to stay somewhat alive in the AFC playoff picture. Look, when it comes to the Steelers this year, this is it for Ben. And I imagine that he wants to go out on the best note possible. Best case scenario, that would be winning a Super Bowl, but it just really doesn't look like that's going to happen. And if they get into the playoffs, somehow they'd have to beat the Browns this week, and then they had to go on the road to play the Ravens next week, which that doesn't really look like it doesn't look like a good situation for them to possibly win that one. But as far as this week is concerned, I'm gonna have the Steelers winning this one in a relatively close fashion. You said you took Cleveland by 7. I'm gonna take Pittsburgh by 7, just because this is potentially Ben Roethlisberger's last home game as a Pittsburgh Steeler. And I think he's going to be able to find some sort of way to rally the troops together, put on a decent enough performance to get by Cleveland. It really kind of depends on how Cleveland wants to play this game. Do they want to play spoiler? They could, but I do think that the Steelers have a better defense to go up against that Browns offense compared to the Browns defense going up against that Pittsburgh offense. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Najee Harris has a pretty solid game. Deontay Johnson has been one of their more reliable targets alongside like Chase Claypool with the Steelers offense. So I think this game is going to be relatively close, but I just think that overall, I think the Steelers just have a better team. I'm going to have them winning this one by like the score of like 24-17. I think it's going to be a relatively low scoring game, but I think the Steelers find a way to get it done and keep their playoff hopes alive for one more week.
Yeah. I mean, to each his own. One of us got to be right? At this point, it's like a 50-50 split.
Yeah. I mean, dude, flip a coin. It could kind of go either way. It's kind of one of those games. I mean, it's a divisional game. You never really know how these divisional games play out. They're always tough. That's why I think it's going to be relatively low scoring. But, the Steelers do have something to play for. The Browns don't. I mean, the Browns can play for pride at this point. It's pretty much all that they can play for. But, with the Steelers, there's some significance for them in this game, and I think they play up to the pressure, and I think they beat Cleveland in a close one. But with that said, we're going to transition into our last topic of the episode. We're going to transition into the NBA for a little bit, and we're going to talk about the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls have been one of the more surprising teams in the NBA this season. They made some pretty big acquisitions in the offseason by acquiring guys like DeMar DeRozan, Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, and these guys have stepped up and played phenomenal basketball to go along players such as Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic. As a whole, when you look at Chicago right now, they're on a 7-game win streak. They are currently at the top spot in the Eastern Conference with a 24-10 record. They're one game above both the Nets and the Bucks, who are currently tied for second place in the Eastern Conference. And Chicago is coming off of 2 dramatic wins off of 2 back-to-back DeMar DeRozan buzzer beaters in just some of the most clutchest shots that you will see this season. So, Kevin, to kick this one to you, with the way that Chicago has been playing this season, what is the limit or what is the potential for the Chicago Bulls throughout the rest of the season?
I mean, you have to say at this point in the season, you would say that they're a true competitor in the Eastern Conference. They have probably one of the best duo, if not the best duo currently in the NBA, and statistically amongst Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, who have just put up incredible numbers all season long. They have a true pass first rebounding point guard in Lonzo Ball. Obviously, they know that Kobe White can ball out. You know, he's coming from the boys' school. He's coming from UNC. We all know he's a baller by nature. And then Nikola Vucevic, the big guy down low that can play great defense, that can extend plays outside and, really stretch the floor. So I really think that the sky's the limit with this team. I know a whole lot of people outside of the two of us were really kind of shitting on the DeMar DeRozan acquisition. What's he going to do? He's washed up. He didn't really have anything left in San Antonio. It's between Zach LaVine and DeMar. They're not going to get along, blah, 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 blah. And it's the complete opposite. Kyle and I both said that this was going to work out perfectly. We thought that this starting lineup was never going to be an issue. We thought it was going to be the bench. We thought that because of their lack of an actual bench and productivity there, that they weren't going to be able to capitalize in the Eastern Conference. Kobe White's playing great. Alex Caruso's been playing stellar. And a litany of other players that are on this bench. Derek Jones Jr. is giving them good, valuable minutes. So it's like, bro, what can't this team do? DeMar DeRozan has shown the capability of that veteran presence to be a clutch veteran leader on the field, on the court, and off the court. We've seen that he can hit the clutch shot. We've seen that Zach LaVine can take over a game and be the leader that they need offensively if DeMar's having an off night. And we've seen that Lonzo Ball's consistent shooting stroke has been someone that they can lean on late in games if they need a clutch bucket as well. So I think that Chicago's a very good and well-rounded team. I think that they're slept on defensively as well. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they go out there and they make a run for an Eastern Conference Finals appearance just because they're playing that well. And I know that we're in January and the playoffs don't start necessarily until May. So we have some time. But damn, man, if the season were to end today, this team is really going to be sitting there. You can make the point of, are they even going to be competing for an NBA championship? I know that we're super, super, super far out. But if you go and look at it, dude, I think the only team realistically that can beat them in a 7-game series would be Brooklyn or Milwaukee. And if I'm being honest, right now, the way that Chicago's playing, I think they would beat Milwaukee. I just think that Brooklyn, if they get Kyrie at any capacity, is going to make it a little bit difficult in a 7-game series.
I mean, I'm with you 100%. When I look at this team from top to bottom, this team has like a perfect blend of veteran leadership to go along with the youth that they have on this team. You got guys like DeMar DeRozan. DeMar's been around the league for over a decade plus, and he's definitely proven that he is one of the more consistent players that we've seen in the NBA throughout his time being an NBA player. And then to go along with that, you have guys like Nikola Vucevic. You have Zach LaVine, who Zach LaVine has been one of the most consistent players on Chicago the last couple years, and he's improved significantly from the days when he was playing with the Timberwolves, where he was primarily known as just a guy that could just attack the rim at will. But he has improved solidly with just his all-around game. He has become a very good shooter. He is just a huge attack. Like, he's just a guy that just attacks the rim on a consistent basis. And he's a really good leader for this team as a whole. And I think the one guy that's kind of being lost in this whole equation when it comes to Chicago is Billy Donovan. I think Billy Donovan has done a very solid job coaching this team from the start of the season up until now. We're a third of the way through the season. They're at the top of the Eastern Conference for a reason. And it's because he's putting these guys in situations where these guys are being able to excel and making the most of it. Now, do I think that this team is going to compete for an NBA championship this year? There's an outside shot that they can do that. I think the odds are stacked against them in that regard. But I could definitely see them possibly threatening to get to the Eastern Conference Finals this year, like you mentioned. I could definitely see that. But they would have to prove to me that they can either outscore Brooklyn or Milwaukee on a consistent basis, or that they play solid enough defense against both of those teams. Because when I look at like Brooklyn and when I look at Milwaukee, Brooklyn is so potent offensively, it's going to be tough to overcome that. And then Milwaukee, they're just a great, well-rounded team offensively and defensively. And I would say that Chicago would definitely give them a run for their money against both teams. It's just, it seems like Brooklyn and and Milwaukee are just better as far as talent goes. But from rosters top to bottom, Chicago can definitely compete with these teams. There's no doubt about it. It's just once we get into a playoff situation, then we're going to have to really kind of see how it plays out. We're only a third of the way through the season. They're at the top of the Eastern Conference for a reason. They've been playing stellar basketball. DeMar's been hitting clutch shots in these last two games against the Wizards and the Pacers. I do expect that this team is going to be, at worst, a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference when it's all said and done. Do I think that they maintain the number 1 seed until the end of the season? I think that's a bit of a stretch, but I think this team deserves a lot of credit, a lot of respect for how they started the season. And I do think that this team, if they stay healthy, and hopefully they don't go through like a major COVID issue, because COVID's kind of one of those things that is really kind of an unknown moving forward. But this team has the pieces to definitely compete for an Eastern Conference Finals appearance. There's no doubt about that. Do I think that they could possibly win it if they get there? Maybe. I doubt it, but we'll kind of have to see how that kind of plays out for the rest of the season. But I got to give Chicago a lot of credit. They're having a fantastic start, and they deserve a lot of respect for that.
Listen, Kyle and I have been literally exchanging Chicago Bulls information in terms of stat lines, highlights.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, for God's sakes, even just these 2 highlights we've sent each other back and forth with DeMar's buzzer beaters for the last, like, couple days. And we're just sitting there saying, like, yo, these boys are, like, for real. Like, they're getting better as the season goes on. And I think that needs to be acknowledged. And I'm going to say it again. Dude, people did not like the DeMar DeRozan signing for whatever reason, as if the guy's not a career 20-plus per game scorer. And like Zach LaVine was going to like hog the ball from him, as if Zach literally hasn't been begging for help since he left Minnesota. He almost left Chicago. He sold his house in Chicago last year because he wanted to get traded because he had no faith in this team. I would assume that would make Zach LaVine somewhat smart to say, this team's trying to put something around me, and they're trying to build something. We have a competent head coach. So for people to think that Zach is going to be a ball hog, a disruptive force in the locker room, to me, that's just asinine and that's just stupid. And it's showing, and it's like this flower is blossoming right now at the right time. And I think as the season progresses, they're going to go through their ups and downs.
Yeah.
But I think that they're going to make some noise this postseason, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the same mindset as well. I remember coming into this season, there was no doubt about it that there was a lot of hype surrounding Chicago. This is probably the most hype that they probably received going into a season since, probably back when they had Jimmy Butler and Derrick Rose back in the day. And we're talking like 5-6 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to say, their general manager, which I think the guy's name is like Mark Eversley. I think that's the GM for the Chicago Bulls. He definitely put some chips on the table to bring guys in like DeMar DeRozan, Lonzo Ball, and Alex Caruso. And I really do think that all of those acquisitions that they made in the offseason, I think they've proven to be great pickups throughout at least the third part of the season so far. Now, it's like you said, all these teams are going to go through ups and downs, and I imagine Chicago's going to hit a lull where they might, lose a couple games in like a 4 or 5 game stretch. But I got to be honest, this team is living up to the hype that they were kind of experiencing before going into the season. And I think that they could definitely, put some of these top tier teams like Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Miami, they could definitely make a push against those teams. There's no doubt about that. It's just whether or not this team is going to live up to the hype in the playoffs. That's the only thing, because a lot of these guys, and even DeMar has limited experience in the playoffs, but it'll be interesting to see how this team plays when we get into April, May, possibly June. I don't know if they're going to get to June, but we'll see. But as of right now, though, this team deserves a lot of credit for the start that they have. And I think it's great that Chicago is once again a relevant force in the Eastern Conference and the NBA as well.
Yeah, it's like, we always talk about the league is good when the Knicks are playing good and all these other teams. But I mean, Chicago has been pretty much irrelevant since Derrick Rose's injuries and, Jimmy's exit from Chicago in the manner that it was. So you kind of look forward to a team kind of having a resurgence over the last couple of years. And the way that they acquired Zach LaVine and everything that had happened with him last season in terms of him wanting out, and now it's a legitimate flip. It's just like, well, I mean, Chicago's a big market.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago's got a solid rotation, a good 8 or 9 man team that they can kind of rotate in and out to where you can say, well, the Lakers run a tight ship with like 9, 10 rotated players. Obviously, we have certain teams like the Warriors that run a very lengthy kind of rotation. And then you have Brooklyn that runs the same like 7 people all game. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like if they can legitimately make noise as the season progresses and at least get out of the first round, I think that bodes well for them as a team because they have the coach that's been to the postseason in Billy. They have a player like DeMar DeRozan that knows what it's like to get to the Eastern Conference Finals with the Raptors a few years back. And obviously, Alex Caruso is bringing in some championship pedigree from his time in LA.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like this team is clueless. Zach LaVine would probably be the most inconsistent because he's never been to the postseason.
Or like Vucevic.
But at the end of no, he's played in the postseason games with Orlando. They never won anything, but he's been in the playoffs.
It's different though once you get into those second and third rounds, though. It's one thing to get
No,
to
I
the first.
know, but what I was saying was in terms of a playoff burst,
Yeah. I
they
feel
have
you.
enough to get them into the second round, and they have enough talent to carry them into an Eastern Conference Finals appearance.
If they don't make, I mean,
Second round,
if they don't make the second round, I would be kind of disappointed
big
if
time,
that were to happen. Because I
big
think
time.
this team, it's like I said, I think it's something that we've both been saying like the last couple of minutes. We both see this team at least being a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference, right?
Yep, big time, big facts.
It's just whether or not they live up to it in the playoffs, though. But basing it off the first third of the season, I wouldn't say that they've been probably the most surprising team. If anything, I'd probably say Cleveland's been the most surprising team in the NBA so far.
True.
Just because I think they're sitting at the 5 seed right now, which is only, which for them is absolutely phenomenal. I can't believe that they're actually sitting in that position. But the Bulls being a number 1 team in the Eastern Conference, I don't think a lot of people saw that happening, though. I think that they would have probably given it up to maybe Brooklyn or Milwaukee first, but not Chicago. So I think Chicago definitely deserves some respect and some adulation for that. There's no doubt about it. But we're going to see what happens with this team moving forward because when you get to the middle of the season, sometimes you got to grind through those months of February and March and even the latter parts of January where things can kind of get a little stale. If this team can kind of find their way and kind of grind through some lulls that they're probably going to face in the second, third, and probably the last third of the season, this team could be for real in the playoffs, bro. I'm not going to put it past them.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they can bring to the table. It'll be a nice little change of pace to put a different team into the mix of the postseason.
And the thing is, really once LeBron left Cleveland, it kind of opened up the entire conference for anybody to take it. Just because really LeBron had a monopoly over the Eastern Conference for basically a decade. So, but it's kind of cool to see these other teams really kind of get a good crack at possibly getting not only to the Eastern Conference Finals, but to possibly get to an NBA Finals appearance as well.
It's posing up to be a pretty solid year thus far with the NBA, excluding the falling of both of our teams from what it looks like. But I mean, hey, as an overall basketball fan, I'm happy to see teams like Cleveland and Chicago that are just randomly doing what they need to do, and it provides us with some kind of change. We all know that Golden State was going to eventually turn it around, and Clay ain't even back yet. We all knew that Phoenix was going to come back and try to get a redemption from last year's debacle falling into the finals. We all know that both LA teams, when they get their stars back healthy later in the season, they'll find a way to squeak into the playoffs and try to make some kind of noise. But it's the random hole-in-the-wall teams that are fighting that squeak in that you just look at them like, I didn't see this coming. This is kind of nice.
You weren't expecting it, yeah. And you know what? That's kind of what makes the whole parody side of things worth it. Who would have thought that Cleveland would be a 5 seed? Who would have thought that the Bulls would be a number 1 seed? That's what kind of makes the season special. Because you could definitely find some good stories about that as the season progresses. And I imagine there's going to be some twists and turns that are going to happen throughout the rest of the season as well. Not only just in the Eastern Conference, but in the Western Conference as well. Because I imagine like once Jamal Murray gets back with Denver, that Denver's going to be looking to possibly make a good run to possibly another Western Conference Finals appearance, or maybe even, I don't know if they're going to get to the finals. Like the West is so stacked, but
Yeah.
the way that Jokic has been playing, bro, Jokic is nasty, bro.
He's
That
not
dude,
fair.
yeah, bro, he's like a walking mismatch. How
It's
you
not
7
fair.
feet and you can handle like a point guard?
Not fair. And he can stroke it too. Not fair.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I mean, from the analytics side, I mean, the guy can win another MVP this year.
It's
The analytics always side with him. He's just a machine, bro.
He's a cheat code. He's
I
what
know.
we used to do in like PlayStation 2, where we would like figure out a cheat code for unlimited stamina and shit for like certain video games. He's just that guy.
Yeah, bro. But Kev, I think we've hit everything that we wanted to talk about. You got anything else you want to add?
No, man, that about wraps it up. Appreciate you guys for the support. It's 2022. For everybody, Happy New Year.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for all the support. And we're just going to continue to put out this content. We're going to keep having a good time. You'll have a lot more meltdowns from me. And we're going to have some fun.
Yeah, man. I mean, I gotta be honest. I'm pretty happy going into this episode. You know, Patriots won by 40 today. Tom won. You know, doing goat things like he always does. So I mean, I can't be mad. I know Kevin's probably pissed just because the Colts lost the way that they did, but that's how it happens, bro. Sometimes it just
Bro,
goes like that.
I hate when people say, "Oh, you only lost by a field goal." Bro, we could have lost by fucking 50, bro. A loss is a goddamn loss, okay? Just like when people say, "Well, we won," no. It's the same thing in a fucking loss. I don't give a shit
Look,
how it was.
let's keep it a buck. Even if the Colts somehow managed to win that game, you would have been pissed the way that they won that game.
100%, bro. I tell Kyle guys every week, even in beautiful games where we win by 15 plus points, if we play like shit against a team like that and win by not a lot, or you know what I'm saying, like we just don't play up to snuff, I'm not gonna be happy. Am I happy that we got a victory? Yes. But if we play a good team the way we just played a shit team, we're gonna lose. And it showed today. That's what
Bro,
happens.
that's why they play the game, bro. That's why they play it. So, I mean, as far as, the rest of the week is concerned, we're getting to the nitty-gritty. We're going into pretty much the last week of the NFL before it transitions into the playoffs. I imagine we'll probably do some sort of preview for this upcoming national championship between Georgia and Alabama. I know we've kind of had a couple segments here and there about college football this year, but I think something that Kevin and I pretty much remained steadfast on was the possibility that Georgia and Alabama were going to play in the national championship. And as fitting, both of those teams are not going to compete for a national title. And it's probably shaping up to be one of the best national championships that we've seen in quite some time. But it really just kind of is striking just to see like the difference of competition between the SEC and then the rest of college football. It's not even fair. Really, the only team that I think could really kind of compete with those SEC teams is probably Ohio State, because Michigan got absolutely wrecked in their semifinal game. Cincy just
Didn't deserve to be there.
no. And then when you look at the rest of the top teams in college football, you really think like Oklahoma State is going to be somebody like Alabama or Georgia?
Sure as shit
No.
wasn't gonna be fucking Notre Dame, let me tell you.
Bro, you could do a 30-minute conversation just off of that, just with you about Notre Dame.
Tired of Notre
So,
Dame fans. I don't
but
have enough energy for that bullshit.
but at least that Ohio State Utah game was a good one as far as the Rose Bowl game
Back and
goes.
forth, man.
That
Back
that
and
was
forth.
that was a good one. So, because all the other ones were kind of
Whoa.
duds. I mean the Notre Dame Oklahoma State game was pretty good. But
Yeah,
I
it
think
was.
I know it puts a smile on your face to see Notre Dame lose another one. Aren't they like 0-10?
In the last
In,
10 bowl games, yeah, it's
yeah,
comical. That
yeah,
includes a national championship and multiple high level bowl games that everyone said Notre Dame was going to be the best team in the country. Right. 0-10, guys.
yeah. So those stats just hurt, especially if you're a Notre Dame fan.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's pretty much all we got from here, you guys. once again, I know we reiterate it pretty much on, an episode by episode basis, but we just appreciate you guys tuning in for the podcast, whether it's listening to us on the audio platforms or whether it's watching us on YouTube. We definitely appreciate the support. Do be on the lookout. We will have another episode coming out later this week. We'll probably just be going over the NFL and then maybe some NBA topics as well. But other than that, that's pretty much all we got from here. Just once again, thank you guys for just tuning in to watch or listen to the episode, and we'll see you guys later this week.